The majority of accidents that happen are because one driver does not allow for enough reaction time based on their speed, vehicle conditions, and level of attention on the road. It sounds odd, but you can utilize math to help understand how to adjust your driving style to reduce the risk of an accident. We can't control everything that happens on the road, but if we use math and minimize our risk, then if something does happen, the degree of severity would be much less. Let's start with our numbers. An average truck partially loaded weighs 22,000 pounds. Our trucks have steel bumpers that go up to 36 inches high, and trucks ride higher with a clearance of 18 plus inches. If you ever rear-ended a small car going 35 miles an hour, the G-force generated from that impact would be 312 Gs. 1 G doubles weight, so 312 Gs multiplied by 22,000 pounds comes out to 6.8 million pounds of force. Think about that for a moment. The average car traveling 55 miles an hour takes 155 feet to stop. Now the average box truck traveling at 55 miles per hour takes 185 feet to stop. So at 55 miles per hour, as you're just driving along, you're covering 80 feet per second. And at 70 miles an hour, you're covering 102 feet per second. So think about that. Every second you're driving at 70, you're covering 102 feet. The average box truck traveling 70 miles per hour takes 235 feet to stop. And then you get into reaction time. The reaction time takes 1 to 2 seconds depending on driver's attention. So say you're at 1 second and you're on point, paying attention, and you need to stop and you're going 70 miles an hour, well, that's 235 feet to stop, and then you already crossed 102 feet, acknowledging that you do need to stop. So that's 337 feet to stop. And note, again, this is all on dry, flat surfaces in ideal conditions. So an example here, if motorist A rear ends motorist B, motorist A will be cited and be financially responsible for the accident. This is because motorist A did not leave enough space behind motorist B to react and stop in time. So if you rear end a car while driving a loaded box truck, a ticket insurance is probably the least of the worries, right? The safety of everyone involved in the accident is what's most important. So are you risking people's lives following too closely? You just got to ask yourself that. And what can you do to create a bigger gap and be a little safer on the road? So you're probably asking yourself, how does math come in and equate driving more safely on the roads and creating a bigger gap? Well, let's just do the math here a little bit. If you don't know your distance behind a car on the road, pick a marker, and when the car in front of you passes that marker, then count how many seconds until you pass. If you count 3 seconds and you're going 70 miles an hour, that means you're 306 feet behind the car in front of you. Now we know from our previous examples, you need 337 feet to stop in ideal conditions, so at 3 seconds, you're following too closely. Now remember, when you're looking down at the radio or to take a sip of your drink, you can eat up valuable reaction time and distance. If you allow for more distance every time you drive, you'll always have ample time to react and safely adjust course. One way to see if you are following too closely driving company vehicles or your own personal vehicle is if you get a lot of rock chips or have a lot of debris hit the windshield or vehicle while you're driving it. If you are getting a lot of rock chips and cracked windshields, odds are you're following people too closely and need to change that. Another way to use math when you're on the road is actually utilizing the lane markers. It's a uniform policy by the National Highway Administration that each white or lane strip on the freeways has to be 10 feet long. And then the gap between the lane lines is 30 feet. So from the start of the white line to the beginning of the next one is a total of 40 feet. So if we were to ask everybody beforehand, how long do you think a lane marker is? Most people probably say 2 to 3 feet. They're 10. How far is the gap between lane lines? Oh, 10 feet, 15 feet. No, it's 30. So when you're looking at how much space is on the road and how fast you're covering it, this really puts it in perspective. But it also puts in a little bit of how disorienting distance looks while you're driving, where those lane lines do look shorter than that. But if you actually pull over on the side, I'm not encouraging anyone to do that, take out a tape measure and measure those, they're going to be 10 feet longer, the white lanes, and it's going to be 30 feet of distance between them. So that's something to keep in mind when you're out there, is how fast that amount of distance is going by and how quick you have to react in order to make those stops or adjust course to avoid a collision.